Anyway, if you've been a fan of my channel for a long time, you're probably wondering why the hell haven't I reviewed this before? And the answer to that was simple. Even though I started watching this series nearly 4 years ago, around the time it actually got released in the US, I actually hadn't finished watching it until just today. The reason for that is because I was actually watching it together with Snowman. We were watching all of the episodes together, so I couldn't go on ahead of him. And in that respect, it actually made me take my sweet time with this series, which is great because, as you probably guessed, I fucking love it. So Devilman, the 1972 series, was made alongside the manga. The two of them actually have very different stories, with only a few similarities between the two. Obviously, character names are carried over, and there are a couple of elements that happen in the manga that are actually in the anime. For the most part, Devilman 1972 is its own beast. When I first talk about the plot, I'm actually going to avoid spoilers, however I will get to them later on, so I will warn you when I'm going to do that, because for the most part, the plot is very simplistic and doesn't actually have a lot you can spoil. There is some towards the end that I'll be getting to, but like I said, I'll warn you beforehand. So what's Devilman 1972 all about? Well, Akira Fudo is in the Himalayas with his father on a sort of expedition sort of thing. The two of them are killed, and Demon Lord Xenon decides to send out a demon to take over the human world. He sends out a group of demons that fight to take over the corpse of Akira Fudo and take his place. The one who, of course, wins is Devilman. I will mention that the demon's name actually is Devilman in this series. His name is not Ammon, as it is in the manga. It's actually a demon by the name of Devilman, taking the place of Akira Fudo. Akira Fudo dies in the first episode. He is hardly in this series at all. However, he is referred to as Akira Fudo throughout the series, despite the fact that he is obviously not the original Akira Fudo, but he has taken his place amongst the humans. He meets Miki and falls in love with her, and because of that, he decides he's going to protect Miki and her family, and by extension, he sort of becomes the protector of the human race. He has both the memories of Devilman and the memories of Akira, so it's easier for him to blend in as Akira. And because he still has his Devilman memories, he's able to recognize different demons from the demon tribe as they each come after him. Xenon gets pissed off that Devilman has betrayed him and starts sending different demons after him to try and take him out. And as you probably guessed by the way that that's outlined, this becomes a Monster of the Week format. Each episode has Akira fighting a different demon, each of them with their own unique special abilities, some of them actually being from the manga, others being completely made up on the spot. As the episodes progress, the demons get more and more desperate to defeat Devilman, so eventually they start sending stronger and stronger demons. In one episode, however, there is a dumb demon who doesn't really get sent after Devilman, but kind of just goes to try and fight him. This demon, by the name of Lala, loses to Devilman pretty easily. He doesn't even have to fight her. She's absolutely terrible at everything she does, and she's not even the main demon of the episode, despite the fact that it is her name in the title. Lala herself actually falls in love with Devilman and decides to help him. So she becomes a recurring character starting with episode 26. Now this next bit is where I start to spoil things, so you have been warned. In the episode Demon Magdalor, Lala actually gets killed. This is probably the second time that someone close to Devilman actually dies, the first time being in the episode Goodbye Demon Drongo, which is probably one of my all-time favorite episodes. I've talked about Drongo before a couple times on the channel, but if you don't know, Drongo was Devilman's best friend when the two of them were in the demon tribe, and when Drongo comes out to fight Devilman, he doesn't want to. He's forced into it. It's either him or Devilman as far as Xenon's concerned, and he listens to Xenon. So because of that, unfortunately, Drongo and Akira do have a battle to the death, leading into Drongo's death, which is honestly the saddest death in Devilman 1972. Which, if you're familiar with Devilman as a whole, you're probably a little bit confused as to how Drongo is the saddest death. Well, the thing is, like I said, the story plays out completely differently. So in the following episodes after that, I noticed the tone got a little bit darker and the demons seemed to be getting more and more powerful, especially in the last 5 episodes. In episode 38, Demon Draymoon, he has to fight this demon that has the power to manipulate the moon. And he has like this thing that can like create its own gravitational pull in his chest. And the way Devilman has to defeat Draymoon is by making him basically kill himself. So that leads me to believe Draymoon might be more powerful than Devilman himself. I don't know that that's the case because that is the penultimate episode. In the final episode, he fights God. Now, God in this is portrayed as a demon, although it definitely has a lot of biblical references with stuff he says, like, let there be fire, let there be water, stuff like that. He also refers to his abilities as miracles, and he also refers to himself as God Almighty. Well, in the final episode, God initially shows up and tells Devilman, hey, I know your biggest weakness. If you don't stay out of my way, I'm going to reveal your identity to Miki Makimura. Initially, Devilman agrees and decides to let God do his thing. But when God starts endangering Miki's family, he decides it's worth the risk and fights him. And because of that, Miki finds out that he is Devilman. However, they do leave out one key detail. She does accept him for who he is, but She doesn't know that the original Akira is dead. And I definitely think that's something that if she had known, she may have been less accepting. That's kind of a plot hole they just kind of gloss over in the final episode, but it's still got kind of a sweet ending. The two of them end up with a happily ever after, kind of. The reason I say kind of is this ends very much how the 1973 Cutie Honey anime series ends, where he fights the big second-in-command guy, and then he doesn't fight Xenon. And with the ending, it says that Xenon has plenty more demons to send after him. So, it just kind of ends on a semi-cliffhanger sort of thing. They got their little happily ever after, sort of, but they don't really get an ending. Like, it doesn't actually resolve completely because Xenon is still out there, and as it's implied, he still has many demons under his control. So unfortunately, it doesn't have a final resolution. Anyway, I kind of expected this because I did have to look into the ending for another video I did, so I already kind of had that spoiled for me, plus I kind of expected it. As for my actual analysis of the series, I absolutely love this version of Devilman. This was technically my introduction to the Devilman name. However, my introduction to Devilman was actually Violence Jack. That was a little bit different, but if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have found out about this. But this was the first version of Devilman specifically that I watched. And when I first started it all those years ago, I actually didn't know how drastically different it was from the manga. As I got more and more into the franchise, I read the manga, saw the OVAs, saw Devilman Crybaby, read the sequel mangas, saw Devilman Lady. Like I said, since I started watching this like 4 years ago, I had plenty of time to watch all of the other adaptations because it was just this one that I was watching with Snowman. Had I been watching this myself, I probably would have finished it in like 2 or 3 days, just like I did with Cutie Honey. As you'd imagine, as I said, this is drastically different than the manga, so many characters do not exist in the anime that were in the manga, and vice versa. For instance, Ryo Asuka does not exist. Satan does not exist. There is a similar character by the name of Himmler that's kind of a rival to Devilman at the beginning of the series. He does die later on, but he's nowhere near what Ryo's character was, especially since Ryo was Akira's best friend in the manga. Other than that, there are many characters in the anime which were not in the manga, such as Alphon. Now, I've talked about Alphon a few times on the channel, and I love Alphon. His full name is Alphon Louis Steinbeck III. They actually mention that in this anime, which I was unaware of at the time I recorded a couple other videos where I talked about that name of his, but it is mentioned in this anime in one of the later episodes. Alphon is a clumsy teacher character who's always getting hurt and always being kind of perverted and stupid. Alphon is the comic relief, and I love him in the show. He is one of the better characters in the show. I also think that this show does the character development of Tare a lot better than the manga does because he's a lot more prominent, and you get really attached to it. Had this had the same tragic ending as Devilman with everybody fucking dying, it would have been a lot more impactful for me because I got really attached to this version of the characters. Not saying that I didn't with the original manga characters, but this I feel like they're a little bit more fleshed out just because you get to spend a lot more time with them. Now, despite all this praise, it definitely has its ups and downs. Like, for instance, the Monster of the Week format does become very formulaic and played out, and many of the episodes could be watched out of order. In fact, there are many episodes I have forgotten large parts of the plot because they're all essentially the same plot. A demon shows up, starts a problem, Devilman fights them in the end. Despite that, it kind of gives it rewatchability for me because I don't remember large portions of the demons. I remember a lot of the main ones, such as Siren, Evine, and many others, but some of the middle ones I honestly don't remember that much. I remember the salamander chick. There's this green guy I saw a picture of that I completely forgot even existed. So that being said, despite the fact that it is a really good series, it definitely has its flaws. Like I said, there was a couple of plot holes, like for instance, they just kind of don't mention that the original Akira is dead. I don't know whether they forgot that or retconned it or they just covered it up because they didn't want Mickey to know. I don't know. They just kind of forget about that major plot element in the final episode. I do think that was mainly just so that Mickey would be more accepting of him, but regardless, they still left out an important detail when she found out the truth. That being said, I definitely recommend watching this. This is a much more fun and cheesy version of Devilman. It's a lot more cartoony, and that's kind of endearing about it. It takes you back to a different era of animation. And if you like the 73 Cutie Honey and you haven't seen Devilman, the two are very similar series, so I'm sure if you like one, you'll like the other. What I actually think needs to happen is a sequel series to this. Cutie Honey did get a sequel series in New Cutie Honey, however, that still got canceled and didn't finish out the arc. I hope that Devilman gets the similar treatment, but this time gets it finished. And I'd love for a sequel to New Cutie Honey that finishes that storyline off too. I mean, this is the perfect year for these things to happen, because they're doing all this Go Nagai stuff because of the 50th anniversary of his work, so why not do this? Why not go crazy? Anyway, that's my thoughts on Devilman 1972. It is a fantastic series. It's got its ups and its downs, but it feels like a nice Saturday morning cartoon, kind of like Ninja Turtles or some of the old superhero shows like Spider-Man or Superman, things like that. It's very fun. and that's why I like it. It's also very vibrant and colorful. Anyway, let me know in the comments below what you think of this series and my review of it. This has been Fugitive Red Eye, and you have a spadoinkle